Tip, 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 tip. Oh, lads, what a buzz. Tipperary are All Ireland Senior Hurling Champions. It's unbelievable. The podcast, obviously, far later than I would have liked. We are the 20th Wednesday now at 10 past 8 as I've hit record on this. Um, it's been just a chaotic couple of days, 3, 4, 5 days a week, over a week at this stage for myself. So apologies for the podcast being late. I'll get into all that in a bit, but that is unbelievable. I'm after watching the match back for the first time in the last few minutes. I did watch the Sunday game on Sunday evening, but actually sitting down and watching the match back, I'm just after doing it there. So I'm nearly on as much of a buzz now as I was on Sunday coming out of Croke Park. So I don't know where we're going to start. I don't know where we're going to end on this podcast, but we do have a lot to get through. Tipp are the All Ireland champions, beating Cork 327 to 118. I mean, like we couldn't have seen that coming at all. I have some thoughts about trying to explain the second half, but not really. It's not going to be some sort of analysis, tactical breakdown that I can really pinpoint where it all went wrong for Cork and where it all went right for Tipp. But there's a lot to talk about. It's just unbelievable. The feeling around the county since Sunday has been incredible. Bumped into loads of people who watch the podcast and things like that over the last couple of days, and it's just been such a good buzz around the place. So, as always, if this is your first time watching after every Tipperary match, I sit down, talk through the match, go through the players individually, and give my opinion on the whole game in general. We've been doing this for 2 years at this stage, and this is probably going to be the most enjoyable episode we've done so far. If you're new, subscribe. There's loads. I've put up loads of videos already of interviews I've done with some of the players. I'm the sports editor with Tipp FM and commentate on the games. If you're just new to the channel, so I was commentating on the game on Sunday. There's a full video up on the channel already of myself and Ken Hogan's reactions to the game. It's just incredible. So yeah, if you're new here, subscribe. And yeah, if you're watching this video, be sure to give us a like. The channel is doing really well, evidently, after the match on Sunday. So that's a nice little thing as well. And the last couple of podcasts have done really well. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope I can, I don't know, provide you with more content regarding this game. If you're like myself, you've listened to every podcast, you've watched every highlight show, everything that's out there regarding this game, watched all the interviews. And if you're like myself, you're just looking for more chat about this game and about Tipperary. So yeah, as always, we'll go down through the match, and yeah, like it's just been incredible. It's just been incredible. I nearly don't even want to go talking about the game just yet because I'm just living off this kind of buzz and feeling that's around the county at the minute. And looking at that picture there of on the GA website of Ronan Maher lifting the Lee McCarthy Cup, like you couldn't just be absolutely delighted for Ronan. Such a nice fella. Anytime I've interviewed him, comes across really well. Spoke really well on the steps of the Hogan stand there before lifting the cup and after lifting the cup, and just a real leader. And he had an unbelievable game. There's a few moments particularly that I want to highlight with Ronan Maher later on. So yeah, we're just going to shoot from the hip as we always do on this podcast. All I have in front of me, if I change my camera around the good old trusty blue notepad or notebook, hardback even, that is bet asunder at this stage. But this is what I have in front of me while I'm commentating. It's just the team sheets, and I mark the scores as they go. So that's all that's there. I will say, if you're listening from the last podcast, I don't have my mouse with me at the minute, so I'm going to be leaning over here, changing the camera setup. Yeah, if you're listening at the last podcast after the Kilkenny game, I was snuffling and sneezing, and I'm feeling much better now. I'm well rested. I've had a manic couple of days in work and things like that. I worked the early shift this morning, so that's 6:30 to kind of 2:30. So when I came home at 3:00 this afternoon, I fell asleep for about 2 hours. So I needed that. I rewatched the game, and here we are. So absolutely buzzing to talk through it all. So I have. Hopefully this tab is set up properly. It is, right. So there is the Tipperary team. We'll talk through it. And yeah, be sure to leave your comments down below about anything about up tip, whatever you want to comment, put it down below. It's been brilliant. So let's get into it now. What are we, 5 minutes in? So that kind of ramble of just letting the buzz out is coming to an end, but the buzz is going to live on for a long time, that's for sure. So let's go down through the game. If we can, where do we start? So the game started straight away, and Diarmuid Healy had a point put over the bar for Cork, and Cork got a good start to the game. Tipp were a little bit slow. We eventually got a point, the first point of the game for Tipp. Who got the first one? That was Jake Morris. Yeah, so Sam O'Farrell running through and popped a hand pass to Jake and put it over the bar. We'll go down through player by player, but I thought Sam O'Farrell, first time playing in All Ireland. He's only 20 years old. He must have got 4 or 5 assists. He didn't get himself on the score sheet, so you could easily brush it off and forget about his performance. But he set up Jake for Jake's 2 points. He set up Andrew Ormond for 1, if not 2 of his points. Definitely 1. He set up Robert Doyle for 1 as well. So Sam O'Farrell got Tipp going and was moving really well. And he was also marking Darragh Fitzgibbon. And Darragh Fitzgibbon got 2 points, missed a few as well. But what a performance by Sam O'Farrell. So the game started like that. Darragh McCarthy got a point, and Tipp were going well, hanging in there, keeping in the game. Hit an awful lot of wides in that first half, which was a little bit of a worry. Because you felt like Tipp were hanging in there at times in the first half, but at the same time, you never felt, it didn't feel like the other games between Tipp and Cork where danger beckoned. If you were down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh at the league final or in the Munster Championship game, there's a few times where if you're at the game, you're just kind of looking in like, oh Jesus, the ball is going in, and we're like exposed. That just didn't happen really. The ball wasn't going into those Cork forwards. Now I know Brian Omara was playing that kind of +1 auxiliary defender, sweeper, whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of funny, the kind of rhetoric and the chat that's been around that sweeper. It's as if Tipp played real negative, real defensive. But you'd want to be stupid, like not to have a plan in place to not just hand the Cork inside forward line. Here's lovely ball. You can take on our full back line 1v1 all you like. That's just silly. And it's not like Brian O'Mara sat on the edge of the D and stead back. We scored 327. So I just found some of the kind of chat about the sweeper and the kind of winking and nodding on the Sunday game that other, extra man and whatever. Like, what did you want Liam Cahill to do? Say, you know what, lads, leave a load of space for the Cork full forward line, because that's worked in all the games we've played against Cork in the last 2 years. So it has to be mentioned. I should do a section on just Liam Cahill himself and the management team, but what a masterclass. Like, just the matchups they had. Declan Dalton was well marshalled by Willie Connors. Ronan on Brian Hayes. Ronan Maher, like, what a performance. Just pure leadership stuff. We'll get to him and some of the big moments he had. But it was just sensational. He just completely quelled Brian Hayes. Brian Hayes got a point from playing in the whole game, the same as what Rhys Shelley got. So that it was just... There's so much anomalies in this game and bizarre moments, and, like 3-14 to 2 points in the second half. Anytime since Sunday, when I've been talking to people, from the minute we come out of the Hogan stand, and from down in Thurles at the homecoming, that's kind of the thing that's been, anytime I'm talking about the game to someone, that's what I'm saying. It's 3-14 to 2 points. Like, it's incredible. I know Cork hit the post 3 times and hit the crossbar as well, but they didn't have anyone there. Now one of them was kind of lucky for Tipperary, where it came off the post, and there was 2 Cork lads there, but I think it was Michael Breen who just fell to him, or it was one of the white helmet defenders, which doesn't really narrow it down, because 4 to 6 lads are wearing white helmets back there. Could have been Brian O'Mara. It just landed to them on the edge of the square, and off they went. I don't think it was Brian O'Mara, because I think Conor Lahan was on the field at the time, so probably Michael Breen, and he cleared it off. Another one, Robert Doyle, was there, whereas other side of the field, John McGrath, one mistake from the goalkeeper, bang, he's there. And the composure John showed for that goal is incredible. But we'll stick with the first half, and we'll work our way up through the game. So, as we were saying, Tipp done well to kind of cut off that space, and Cork were struggling because they must have hit Brian O'Mara 2 or 3 balls straight away. And even I thought Brian O'Mara, he played the role really well, because you could, teams are so good now that they can easily bypass a spare defender back there and play a nice ball in and keep it away from him. But even when they did keep it away from him, and let's say a ball went diagonally to the other side of the field and a Cork player maybe was out in front of a Tip defender and got it, Brian Omara had come into the centre of the 21 and he was a body there in the vision of the Cork player and cut off that space, where if a Cork forward got it, they might turn their man and go like we've seen before. But now if they turn their man and go, Brian Omara is there, so they have another defender to kind of try and get by, and that slows up the Cork attack and gives other Tipperary defenders a chance to get back. But it also gave the Tipperary full back line the onus to go and attack the ball. Don't worry about letting your man get it and trying to stop him, because as we've seen with this Cork full forward line, if they get the ball in their hands, it's too late. So the Tip lads were flying out in front, getting flicks. Owen Connolly, a load of flicks in the game. Robert Doyle had 2 brilliant blocks laid on. Michael Breen was, has been all throughout the year, like a train coming out to every ball. And that's because if it did break in behind, Tip had the bodies back there. And I think why the tactic worked so well as well is because Tip have a lot of sticks, man, a lot of proper hurlers like Brian O'Mara. How much, like when the ball was breaking, there were so many times where if you're not a good, really good hurler, you know, Cork would have lads in on you, but he was able to react so quickly, and it's a real basic skill of hurling, rising the ball. But Brian O'Mara, Willie Connors, Craig, Ronan, so good at, and particularly Brian O'Mara, at pace, ball is there, down one hand flick straight away into the hand and you're gone. And that's so important because, you know, a little flick there for Brian O'Mara, if he got the ball flicked off him a couple of times, Cork could have been in, but he was so composed. And how many times we said we usually talk about Brian O'Mara's hooking and blocking on this podcast, but his striking is just money. Same, everyone particularly in that half back line, Craig Ronan and Brian O'Mara, just zipping ball everywhere. And that meant that, you know, when the ball broke, that spare man was able to work it through the lines and then play a really good ball into the forwards. And for that first half, you know, Cork, you know, were tipping away with points. Diarmuid Healy was really good in that first half. Shane Barrett had 1-3 in the first half. Horgan got a really good score as well. Niall O'Leary, the cornerback, got up for one as well. But they also did hit a few poor wides themselves. Darragh Fitzgibbon had one. Declan Dalton had one where he kind of tried to kind of flick it forward like a tennis style, or, well, you don't even do that in tennis. I don't know what you call it, like a shovel kind of shot. And that went wide. But yeah, coming up to half time, you were probably happy enough with how Tipper motoring. We were down by kind of 6 points after maybe 27-28 minutes, and then we got it back a couple of points. Darragh McCarthy got one. Jason Ford got a brilliant point from the middle of the field. Jake got a few. He had missed a few. Willie Connors got that point. So I asked Reece Shelley, if you've seen my interview with Reece Shelley, it's on the channel already. There was that time where Patrick Horgan got it was one of the first times where was it Diarmuid Healy kind of had to manoeuvre his way around and popped a hand pass out to I think could have been Shane Barrett, to Patrick Horgan. He was on the 45 coming out the field facing into the Davin stand, kind of closer to the Hogan stand in the middle of the field, and he just threw it up and over the shoulder, off the back foot, sailed over the bar. That was to go maybe 4 points up. Cork crowd erupted. Why wouldn't they? Patrick Horgan, great score. But then Reece just lasered this puck out to the far 45. And if you're only watching the game on TV, you won't have an appreciation for it. And even I have a clip up on TikTok of talking about it. Now, I must say, a lot of the TikTok comments, no matter what I put up, are kind of stupid. You know, there's a lot of youngsters on TikTok, evidently, that just comment stupid stuff the whole time. But one of them was like, here, best puck out of all time. He's serious, kind of thing. Because I was saying to Reece when I was interviewing him that there was one of the best puck outs I've ever seen. But if you were there, and it's kind of a not an issue, but it's a thing that if you're watching a game on TV, a lot of the time they're showing the replay while a puck out is being taken, and it might cut just as the ball is in the air. But from my vantage point, you know, press area, the Hogan stand, Reece just laser 45 out to the far 45, just over Declan Dalton's head. So much so that it was perfect. Willie didn't have to stretch. He didn't have to, you know, run and catch it low. Literally in his pocket. Like he caught him. I don't have the camera angle here, but it literally hand on hip in his pocket, and he caught it there, took on his man, and put it over the bar for a really good score. So Reese has been doing that all season. I remember his puck out against, I think it was against Galway, in the Gaelic grounds. I'm nearly sure it was then when who got the goal for Galway that day was, I can't remember, but whoever got the goal for Galway that day, straight away puck out, lasered. This time it was to the near 45. That time it was Andrew Ormond who caught it and put it over the bar, if you remember that score. So that was a really good score from Willie Connors. But Tipp did get it back to kind of 3 points then. You were going, okay, this isn't too bad. 16 points to 13. And Cork hit it wide. Reese hit it out to Brian Omara. The ref called it back for hitting it too quickly. So Reese hits it to Ronan Maher, who puts one to the far 65 in front of Darragh McCarthy, who had just scored a brilliant point from the middle of the field, if you remember. And, excuse me, Robert Downey, in fairness to him, was right up on Darragh McCarthy's back, flicked the ball away. Owen Connolly tried to flick it then, made its way to Robert Downey. He plays a quick hand pass, then another hand pass goes off to Shane Barrett. He's in on goals, buries it into the back of the net. Really nice finish. Shane Barrett's such a tidy hurler. But you're thinking for Tipp, like, oh, Jesus, like, not before half-time, the worst time you can concede a goal. And, well, maybe not the worst, but, not a good time to concede a goal, if there is such a thing. Really good finish from him, and you're thinking, Jesus, we're going so well, we got it back. We've hit a lot of wides, we're 6 points down now, going in at half-time. And, on commentary, the half-time analysis on Tipp FM, myself and Ken Hogan on commentary, and then we brought in Stephen Gleeson and Ronan Quirk from Tipp FM as well to chat about it, and we were all saying the same phrase: killer blow. That goal was a killer blow. Some people calling it a sucker punch, that kind of thing, and that's what it felt like. And I remember it's on the commentary. If you go into the Tipp FM SoundCloud or YouTube, the full commentary is there. I know I have the highlights on my YouTube channel there, but I said at halftime that if you want to look at it in a positive way, as I try to do, or optimistically, you could say maybe conceding a goal before halftime against this Cork team isn't the worst, because what have we seen in the past between Tipp and Cork? It would be Cork scoring a goal, crowd getting up, Cork maybe getting another score, the crowd going wild, and then Cork maybe getting another goal or two, and suddenly, it's a whirlwind for Tipperary. Whereas we conceded the goal, we got to run in at halftime, everyone get their breath, and Tipp could kind of readjust and probably sit to themselves and say, like, if you've heard any of the player interviews, none of them were saying, they was banging on the table and there was this kind of speech at halftime, whatever, that got everyone going. They were kind of feeling, we're going well here, we're going pretty okay, fair enough, that goal. Whereas for Cork, I would say that Cork were obviously feeling the nerves, because you would be in the game, and for Cork, they really motored well in those last 5 minutes. Alan Connolly got a good point. Brian Hayes got a really good score. And of course, the goal came as well. So you kind of felt that, Cork are motoring here now, and they would have felt that at halftime, that, look, lads, not a false sense of security, but maybe actually a false sense of security at halftime, thinking, we're 6 points up here, we haven't played our best, let's just go out now, and like we've done against this Tipperary team, every time we've played them the last 3-4 times, barring the round of the league earlier on in the year, we'll blow them away. That didn't happen. The second half started, and it's a funny one. If you look back on the game, which I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast and you love Tipperary hurling, you're going to watch this back so many times. And I was just thinking when I was watching it back, I can see myself on a hungover morning years into the future, just lying in bed, kind of half hanging, thinking, I must watch back to 2025 All Ireland here for the day. So you're going to see this game so many times in the next few years, but it's particularly the second half. So it starts with Liam Gordon. It was a funny kind of throw in at the start of the game. He nearly just throws it to the side of everyone, and it really favours Tim O'Mahony, and he takes it on and wins a free off Conor Stakelum, and Patrick Horgan stands over it and hits it wide. And if you've listened to all the podcasts I've listened to since Sunday, everyone is kind of saying the same thing, and all the player interviews have kind of mentioned, when Patrick Horgan missed that free, it kind of gave us a bit of a lift. So Patrick Horgan hits it, it goes to Hawkeye, just so marginally wide, but for Patrick Horgan, that is a free that he scores, I'd say 95 out of 100 if you were to give him 100 balls there, centre it at 65, and it just goes wide and gave Tipp a bit of a lift. We go along with the puck out, it breaks, There could have been a foul. Willie Connors kind of throws himself into a challenge maybe on Kieran Joyce, breaks to Conor Stakelum, he puts it over the bar, and suddenly Tipp are moving. Andrew Ormond, who I thought was a bit off it in the first half in terms of the ball wasn't sticking to him as much as it has been in other games. First 5 minutes of that second half, everything stuck for Andrew Ormond. He was flying around the place. He got a couple of points early on in that second half. Set up a couple as well. Sam O'Farrell, who I mentioned, was on song, surging forward down through the middle of the field, always taking the right option. Gave off a couple of passes there, as we mentioned, and as we mentioned to Andrew Ormond. And Tipp were getting back into it. Darragh McCarthy got a score where there was a half a goal chance there, and off the kind of back foot on the edge of the 21, he sent it over the bar. And suddenly Tipp were starting to motor. And it was funny because, you know, it's more so maybe later in the half where this is more noticeable. But even at that time, Cork's body language was kind of a bit frazzled, kind of like, it wasn't, I don't want to be like revisionist and looking back on it now, in this stage of the game, it was definitely like that in another couple of minutes. But even at this stage, you could kind of see there's a bit of indecision, a bit of what's going on here, what are we doing? And then, you know, it came like a tsunami then. Tipp started to build that momentum. When Darragh McCarthy knocked over that point, it brought it back to maybe a point or two. There was Tipp starting to ring out, and you could feel the tension in the Cork supporters. They weren't as loud, really. Now, they were loud, in fairness. You know, the last 20 minutes they weren't, but for this period, it was just starting to turn. The Tipp crowd were getting up, and then it all kind of came, as I said, as a tsunami. So the first goal, who drove it long? Was it Michael Breen drove it long? No, sorry, it was Jake Morris who took a shot from the edge of the 45. He was kind of half hooked, and it's goalkeeper Patrick Collins coming over the crossbar, knocks it down, kind of, I'd imagine the Hurley crossbar, you know, coming back and kind of flicking the ball out, rebounding it out to the 14, and John McGrath, the coolest man in Croke Park, coming onto it, looking back on the replay, like he gives it a little bit of a dummy, like, you know, as if he's going to pull on the ball, and that forces Patrick Collins to go to ground and come kind of sliding out. And then next thing, the ball is underneath him. He kicks it, and it's all kind of chaotic at this stage. In the commentary video, I'm standing up, kind of shouting, trying to explain what's going on for the radio commentary, and then it all just slows down. It was like, I'd describe it nearly as like a PlayStation game where there's a fighting scene or something, and then, you know, it just slows down for you, and it comes up like press X, press circle, and it goes in slow motion. And, you know, while it's all playing out in real time, it's like everything slowed down for John McGrath. He just kicked it forward with his foot, got down, rose it, sidestep, finish, and like unreal goal for John McGrath. Runs away with the celebration. We love to see it. The John McGrath, 2 arms up. Has to be a statue of John McGrath someday like that. It just has to be. I'll put in money myself towards that statue, wherever you want to put it, of John McGrath running away, celebrating. 2016 All-Ireland final, he's doing it. 2025 All-Ireland final, he's doing it. So that was a huge moment. From that, puck out goes long. Cork finally get their first score the second half after about, I think it was the 46th minute. And that was, what's his name? Shane Barrett, who got on. It was just a long puck out down to Brian Hayes. I'd say that's Cork's kind of like go-to, if something happens against us, if we concede a goal, bomb it down the middle to Brian Hayes, and we get in the breaks, and they got onto it. Shane Barrett got it through over the bar. 1-4 for him at that stage. So then you felt, right, game on now, 119 to 118 or whatever it was. Sorry, no, 119 to 117, I think. That's at 118 to 117 at that stage. And you're thinking, right, game on, here we go. What's going to happen next? So in fairness, Tipp just took over. The exact order of the points are going to be a little bit off for me here, but Tipp just took over. Darragh McCarthy nailed a few more frees, and then the next big moment, as I was saying earlier, it all kind of came at once. The next big moment was it Michael Breen who got on the ball? And it must be mentioned as well, if you're looking back on it, Conor Stakelum actually played a big role in some of these goals, not by delivering the ball in, but there was a lot of times where a ruck was formed in the middle of the field before some of Tipp's goals. and it was Conor Stakelum who mightn't have even won the ball, but he stopped a Cork lad from winning it by getting his body in the way, or else he won it and flicked it off. For this goal, I believe it was Willie Connors who kind of got onto the ruck and just kind of threw it up with one hand and flicked it with the other back towards, it was either Owen Connolly or Michael Breen, and the ball is launched long, and you can't see it on the camera on the live feed from when I watched it back earlier, but John McGrath gives Owen Downey, as I called it on commentary, a Sheamus Derby nudge in the back, and then catches the ball over his shoulder incredibly, and Owen Downey gets his kind of right arm around him. John McGrath throws up the left arm, exaggerates the contact and wins the penalty. And that was Tipper up by 3 at that stage. But Sheamus Derby 1982 for Offaly against Kerry, if you're unaware, this Kerry going for the drive for 5, kind of last minute goal for Offaly to win the game. The ball is coming in and he just gives the defender a little bit of a nudge as the ball's in the air, goes over the fingertips of the defender into Sheamus Derby, he buries it into the back of the net. So that's the kind of reference there, the little nudge, so kind of slight, blindsided the referee, perfect by John McGrath, cute, nous, know-how, that kind of thing, everything about John McGrath, and wins that penalty. And then, Darragh McCarthy steps up, 19 years of age, and a point on Darragh McCarthy throughout the game, well, not throughout the game because it kind of tended to, it faded out for the last 10-15 minutes, but at the very start of the game, every free Darragh McCarthy stood over, the Cork crowd were jeering him. Ken Hogan didn't like it one bit on commentary. It's not the GA way, booing and jeering at a free taker. And I made the remark that I'd say a good portion of those Cork, not a good portion, but maybe a lot of those Cork supporters maybe hadn't been at a game with Darragh McCarthy playing before, because they seemed to be surprised by his free taking routine. And it's something I must do, is time how long it takes Darragh McCarthy to take a free compared with TJ Reid, because Darragh goes through this unique what would you call it, routine to hit his frees, where he stands over the ball, looks down, looks up, stands back from the ball, then stands behind it, throws up a bit of grass, and then points the hurley at the goals, and then walks into the ball and takes his free. Takes a while. It's noticeable. I remember the first time I ever saw Darragh McCarthy hurl, I think, was for Nina CBS. He was in about TY, I think. Shawnee Kennelly was on that Nina CBS team. It was on in Nina, a few years ago now, and he was hitting frees that day for Nina CBS. And I remember thinking, God, this guy has a unique technique. And I've asked about it before. There's videos up on my TikTok from way back of asking him about it before the Hardy Cup last year. But it's a long routine. There's time for it to get in your head, with the people booing and trying to put him off. But he was just ice cold throughout. And even was it the first free he got? Jason Ford had to take his boot off, kind of right in front of him. Now it was a nice free because it was just on inside the 45, slightly left of goals, but relatively central. It could have even been around the edge of the D. Nice free to take. And he had a few of those early on to settle, which is always nice for a free taker. But Jason Ford was down, had to change his boot right where the free was given. So Darragh McCarthy had time to wait, and as I think he said himself, he had a stinker on the frees in the semi-final, is his words. I think stinker is harsh. He missed 2 out of the 4 he took, so that was a little bit harsh maybe. But there was chatter about whether he would be put on the frees, whether Jason Ford might take up the free taken because he nailed him against Kilkenny in the semi-final. But no, Darragh McCarthy stood there. He had to wait for Jason to sort out his boot situation. That would have maybe added to a little bit of tension, but he looked cool. He picked up the hurley for Jason as he was getting up, and then put the ball down, went through his routine, over to Barrett went. And the next 3 or 4 frees that he hit, same booing, jeering from the Cork crowd, really loud, phased it all out. He was so cool and composed and accurate from the frees. But for the penalty, and I might just talk a little bit later on, I'm going to say remind me, but this isn't live, so you're not going to be able to comment or anything, just about body language and the kind of vibe of the Tipperary players from the word go. So we'll get back to that. But the penalty itself, Darragh McCarthy stands over it, goes through the routine. He doesn't throw the grass up when it's a penalty because it's close range, and just leathers it up into the top corner. Really good finish, and gives this big roar back and gives a high five to John McGrath and to Jason Ford. And there was huge kind of release from the Tipperary supporters. They'd gone 6-up, and then huge moment then. So from there, again, Patrick Collins bombs the puck out long, down on top of Brian Hayes, and Ronan Maher, for like 3 or 4 times he done it in the game, comes soaring out, catches the ball over Brian Hayes, drives it forward, and I'm nearly sure the next point was Darragh McCarthy himself putting it over the bar. But that catch from Ronan, because it was just momentum building. Tipp had got the goal with John McGrath, everyone was going nuts. Then they win the penalty, everyone's going nuts. They score the penalty, the Tipp crowd are up again, and then the puck out caught by Ronan Maher, and like everyone's given it. I watched the game back, as I said, just before I press record, and literally lying on my bed watching it on the laptop, I'm kind of like this when Ronan Maher makes the catch. So it just all kind of compounded, and that tsunami was growing bigger and bigger, and it was looking like there was less and less that Cork could do. And as we were saying, they're down to 14 at that stage. The first yellow card for Owen Downey was kind of persistent fouling. A few people saying it was probably soft, maybe it was, but I felt at the time that there had been 3 or 4 duels between Owen Downey and John McGrath, and Owen Downey was kind of all over him, had fouled him for a couple, got away with a couple as well, but it was very much kind of, it's just John McGrath is so good at using his body. I'd say he's a nightmare to mark, because he's not a small fella whatsoever, but he uses his body so well to kind of get in around you. Even at one stage in the first half, he kind of flicked the ball out to the sideline, and when it's going out there, he's so good at just using his body to get in the way of you. He's able to rise it then with composure and do what he wants with the ball. But yeah, Owen Downey was kind of all over him there. All in all, probably he can be a little bit annoyed maybe about the red card, but when that ball went into the back of the net from Darragh McCarthy, Ronan Maher catches it, next ball goes over the bar. It's funny, like there was still 17, 18 minutes plus additional time to go, but it almost felt like the game was over. That was the feeling I had when I was there commentating on it. The Cork body language, none of them were talking to each other, if that makes sense. Sheamus Harnedy came on, and he kind of was the only one I saw been like pointing at lads and roaring at lads, but every one of the other Cork players almost looked lost, deflated, dejected, but lost, out on their own, kind of shell-shocked. They were all kind of not walking around, they were all playing the game, but they were playing it individually, if you can kind of get what I'm trying to say. There was no kind of talking between each other, trying to sort things out. The Cork management there was about 6 or 7 of them around Pat Ryan, and they were all talking, but it didn't seem to be much kind of communication to, look, we need to do this. And it was kind of a shell shocked. Again, I'll make another PlayStation game kind of a reference, or even like a movie, let's say, where like a war movie where like Saving Private Ryan or something, and there's a soldier in the trenches, and there's mines going off and bombs going off and explosions, and the movie will just drown out all that, and you can just hear like this, like that kind of noise, and it's just the soldier is kind of nearly concussed by what's going on and not aware of kind of what's happening. If that's a good explanation, I don't know if it is or not, but that's what it kind of felt like. It was like this kind of concussive blows that Tipp had landed on Cork, and suddenly they didn't really know what they were doing. They kind of there was a bit of panic. There was a bit of not knowing what they're doing. They were kind of living outside themselves, if you get me. They were kind of thinking, oh God, what should we be doing here? They weren't living ball to ball in the moment, kind of in the game. They were kind of outside themselves. I would think they were probably thinking, what's going on? This can't happen. This can't be happening again. What's going on? And they just got caught up in it. And there was, as I was saying, there was punch after punch coming from Tipperary, with John McGrath, with the red card, with the penalty, with Ronan Maher catching the ball, with Michael Breen bursting out past Patrick Horgan a couple of times and winning frees off him. It was just all coming, and they just had no answer. And it continued. After that penalty, after the next couple of scores from Tipperary, Jason Ford fired one over the bar. Jason Ford's first point was unbelievable as well, from the middle of the field, kind of catch and shoot. That was when Tipp were kind of under pressure in that first half, but the punches kept coming. Suddenly you're looking to the sideline, Noel McGrath is coming on, the Tipp crowd are on their feet again. Joe, we're 8 or 9 points up at this stage. Noel McGrath is coming on and place is going nuts. That's another kind of punch. And then the kind of maybe the killer blow. I can still, it's unbelievable. If you were there in Croke Park for that John McGrath goal, the second one, you know, on I think on the TV it's hard to see it because when the camera cuts to John McGrath rushing down on the goals, you can't really see where the ball is. But if you were there, Owen Connolly maybe, you know, just outside his own 45 gets it and just launches it, and you're just kind of looking at the ball in the air, and you can see that Sean O'Donoghue is in the wrong position and John McGrath's gone in behind him, and you could just see it all kind of happening, and you can see the crowd kind of standing up as the ball is landing, and John McGrath jumps up in front of the goalkeeper, gets the flick into the back of the net, and the place has gone just bananas again. You know, it was unbelievable and such a hard thing to do, particularly when John McGrath's gone in around the back, and I'd love to see nearly an aerial shot of that moment, because I'd love to see did he put a bit of a move on Sean O'Donoghue to get in behind him or what, but he got in behind him. And you know, I played in goals myself, Patrick Collins in goals. It's a tough one for him because in that situation, usually you have your defender holding out the forward and you can just look at the ball and deal with it. It's very hard. He would have known out of his kind of perception that when that ball was coming down Patrick Collins, that he would have known that John McGrath is inside. I need to do something with this. He probably should have just came and got something on it. He kind of waited for it. That gave John McGrath the chance to come in and flick it into the back of the net. I do have sympathy though for Patrick Collins' goalkeeper union. You would have liked your defender to kind of had protected you at that stage. But John McGrath, just brilliant to jump up. While all that's happening in John McGrath's head, he could easily be thinking this goalkeeper is going to come out and clean me out here. But no, brave as ever, gets the tap on it into the back of the net. Place goes nuts. Myself and Ken anyway definitely went nuts on commentary, and you know, that was the one that put it beyond doubt, I think, at that stage, even though there was still all of 10 plus minutes left. But Cork were beaten ticket at that stage. The body language, as I said, everyone hurling, you know, away from each other, if you get me. They weren't communicating, walking around, body language just terrible. There was no chest out stuff, and at that stage it's going to be hard to be like that anyway when you're 12 points down, a man down, and especially with all the kind of expectation on Cork. I don't envy Cork whatsoever in the position they were coming into this game. So much, like, whatever you want to call it, hype, excitement from their supporters, as there would be, but it's just they've so many supporters, and it's obviously going to get a little bit crazy. But did it feed into the Cork dressing room? Like, it probably has to in some sense. Just when you live in the county, you feel the kind of feeling of the county. Like, I'm living in Tipp, I feel on a high since Sunday, and it's Wednesday evening now. And I'm sure it's the opposite of that in Cork at the minute, but they probably just did feel that sense of expectation and excitement, and they were probably kind of set up for that killer blow, particularly with how the first half ended, and they really started to motor in that end of the first half, and they got their goal. They probably kind of were lulled into that sense of, yeah, this is going good now, and then suddenly and very quickly and in a flash it wasn't going good, and they were 12 points down, the All-Ireland final, a man down. And you know, flashbacks for them to like last year, they played really well in the final and they were just beaten by a point in extra time. But 2021, blown out of it by Limerick. A lot of those players had played those games before for this Tipperary team. You know, a lot of those Tipp team, you know, Michael Breen, let's say, Jake, Willie Connors, John McGrath, they haven't lost an All-Ireland final. Jason Ford would have played in 2014, so he's lost a couple. But all those lads, Ronan, only have good experiences of playing on the field in an All-Ireland final, and then 9 of the Tipperary starting 15 had never played in an All-Ireland final, so they don't have any scar tissue. So that all started to come back as well. So I don't envy Cork in the position they were in. They were worthy favourites, but it kind of set up in a way for an ambush of sorts, and Tipperary certainly did that. And for the end of the game, then Darragh McCarthy nailed another really good free that Oisin O'Donoghue won. Rhys Shelley, Rhys Shelley scores a point from his own 45. He's such a character. Like the interviews that you've seen with him, either by myself or Tommy Rooney and Off the Ball done ones with him, and there's been a few with him there on Morning Ireland there on Monday when I was at the team hotel. But Rhys Shelley is just a character. Owen Connolly had a free that Willie Connors won. Willie Connors is class. Best. We'll go down through the player ratings, or not ratings, but I don't know what you call them, opinions or whatever, individually. But Willie Connors is unbelievable. He won that free on the 45. Owen Connolly had it, and Rhys was saying that he'd kind of made a run looking for the ball, but Cork, maybe Alan Connolly or someone saw it, so he kind of turned his back, and then he noticed that the Cork players had kind of ran on, and suddenly it was on again. So he roared at Owen Connolly, "Owen, I'm here. I'm still here if you want me." Owen Connolly pulled it back to him, and I think Owen Connolly then wanted the ball back from Rhys, but he was saying, "No, I'm going to have a go at this." And why wouldn't you? On the 45, sends it in over the bar. Place goes nuts. He's given it to the hill. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? Like I'm actually, the minute I stop this podcast, I'm watching the match again. I'm watching definitely the highlights again. I'm gonna go down with the father, watch the highlights again, because it's such a good buzz. When that went over the bar as well, and then I looked at John. I think we got another point. Maybe I think was that when Jason Ford got his one, and everything was kind of flying over the bar for Tipp at that stage, and then it happened. The last score of the game, a ball is flicked forward out of the Tipperary wing back position, right in front of the Hogan stand. Darragh McCarthy out in front of his man, lovely touch, looks over his right shoulder infield, and Noel McGrath's there. He plays this part, like, it's actually such a good pass because Noel McGrath is running and he just puts it in a place where Noel didn't have to break stride. But like Tipperary 2025, the movie, like, this is such a good moment. Darragh McCarthy sent off against Cork, walking off the field, not kind of knowing what to do after being sent off after 10 seconds against Cork down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, walking off the field, probably everyone jeering at him, I'd imagine, as he's walking off. And Noel McGrath's the one and it's funny, like, Noel McGrath would have had to come down from the seats in Páirc Uí Chaoimh that day to help Darragh McCarthy off the field. He wouldn't have just been standing on the sideline and just kind of put his arm around him as he was coming off. He would have had to come down, get onto the field, run over to bring Darragh McCarthy to the side and help him to the sideline. And fast forward to the All-Ireland final, it's Darragh McCarthy. They sit beside each other on the bus. Darragh idolises Noel, like we all do. Noel has obviously been a real good kind of guide and leader to Darragh McCarthy, a father figure in the squad, if you get me, to Darragh McCarthy throughout the year. And there it is, Darragh plays it to Noel. Noel puts it over the bar, his fourth All-Ireland medal, first man in Tipperary since the great team of the 60s with the likes of Donny Nealon when he was there. Donny has 5 All-Ireland medals, but since that era, so it's 60 years since a Tipperary man collected his 4th All-Ireland medal, and just incredible. Noel McGrath puts it over the bar, Patrick Collins hits the puck out, August Shinné, that's it, full time. Tipperary 327, Cork 118. Just unreal, just unbelievable. We're going to be talking about this in Tipp for a long time. The buzz in the county is just serious. Like, the club championship is starting now at the weekend in the divisions, and this podcast started on the club championships. I love club hurling in Tipperary. I can't wait for August 10th when the county championship gets started, but I can't wait for this weekend coming as well for all the club games, and there's going to be some buzz at them. There's just such a good mood around the county, around hurling and things like that at the minute. So, God, we've come a long way. We have come a long way. I'd nearly myself go back and just listen to some of the podcasts I done last year after the games, just to get a reflection of the mood in Tipperary, because it was low last year. It was very low after that Cork game in Semple Stadium last year, and then we had Clare down there as well, where we were already out of the championship playing in the last round. But if you were one of them Tipperary supporters there for those days, it feels even better now. We've had tough days out. We thought, like, another point is that Tipp have won an All-Ireland in every decade now since the GA was founded. No other county has done that. And, I think we were probably all a little bit scared that maybe we weren't going to win one in this decade. 2025, I don't think at the start of this year anyone really expected us to win the All-Ireland. And then you're thinking, right, we've good young lads coming, but they'd have to do it by 2029, and it could be quick. And here we are. We're All Ireland champions in 2025. It's unbelievable. And yeah, so let's take a step back and kind of look at the game as a whole. From the very start of the game, even before the game started, the Tipp players, when they walk out in the field, no hurleys or anything, just getting a feel for the stadium. This is long before the start of throwing. Just looking at the Tipp lads, they looked comfortable, particularly Reece Shelley. I made the point to him, he had AirPods in, and he was kind of strolling around, and Finn Brady, he's one of the stats fellas with Tipperary. He often comes up to our area, the press box, no matter what place we're in, to set up the kind of full view camera of the field. And I just made the kind of point to Finn that I was like, Jesus, Reece looks like the coolest man in Croke Park here at the minute. And he said, oh yeah, he was playing FIFA all day yesterday, kind of no fear of that lad. And that's what it looked like. This lad playing his first All-Ireland final in goals, which is a position where you're in your head a lot. And Reece was just strolling around, no bother to him whatsoever. Also, this isn't something I would have noticed while I was there, but it was only when I was watching back on the TV coverage of the game. The body language of the Tipperary players during the shaking hands with Michael D. Higgins and before all that, very relaxed. Conor Stakelum, just chatting away with lads, having a laugh. Everyone was kind of looked very comfortable. Robert Doyle, he seems like another great character. They have a lot of them in Clonalty. Good characters, good fellas. Himself and Reece Shelley, kind of smiley heads on them, about to meet the president. And it's just, it's really good to see. It's kind of like endearing from a supporter's point of view that these fellas are so comfortable and happy out. And with those lads, there's a bit of roguery there that you kind of can really get behind as a supporter. Like Reece Shelley has made himself an absolute cult hero now after that performance on Sunday. Saving the penalty. I didn't even mention saving the penalty. Actually, I forgot about that. I'll just may as well mention that. Like Sheamus Derby came on for Cork, and I said he was the only one trying to get things going. Really, he led her the crossbar. Very unfortunate. He hit a kind of a bad wide himself too, but that was his first kind of shot of the game. He caught a few puck outs, but it was Brian Hayes who won the penalty. And you just knew at that point, you're a minute and a half into additional time. Reece had already scored a point, and you just kind of knew that this was going to be saved. And I again refer back to this interview with Reece, asking him about it, that I had a suspicion that he was actually delighted that the penalty was given away, because he was probably in that mood where, yeah, go on, hit a shot at me, I know I'm going to save it. And he did save it and drives it out into the Hogan stand and gives a big roar. And yeah, just class. What a day, lads. What a day. So yeah, I don't even know where we were. Talking about the body language of all the players at the parade. They all looked comfortable, which was really good to see. Now, that could be kind of hindsight. The lads could tell you they were feeling a bag of nerves at the point, but they didn't look it. And they sure as hell didn't perform like they were a bag of nerves. So yeah, for Tipp, the first half, well, we were down by 6 points. I think we hit 9 or 10 wides, and some bad ones, some just kind of Sam O'Farrell, Jake, and I think Andy Ormond all had a wide kind of on the 45 out on the sideline at the Cusack stand side of the field, looking down into the hill, all in that same position. There's a few other wides as well in that first half. As I said, 10 altogether. So Jason Ford scored the goal. That was a square ball. When I was commentating, I was like, yeah, that's right. That looks a square ball. And it still does. But looking back on it, it wasn't as clear as I thought it was. And it's funny. This is another thing. Look back on the footage of Jason Ford's disallowed goal, where the free came in from Owen Connolly and Jason flicked it into the back of the net. Was he in the square before the ball? It's very tight. He I think he probably was, but it's not as clear cut as I thought it was when I was looking back on it. But look back at the footage of that. The umpire that's there, um, at that post right where Jason is, he's like looking to the right, and then the ball hits the net as his head is turning, and it's kind of like maybe it's too loud in Crow Park at pitch level, and wasn't aware that the ball was coming in, but I don't know if he was watching, to be honest. Now, I think it was Liam Gordon who called it as a square ball, but just look back on that. That's something, just a little note to look back on. He's kind of looking to the right, and as the ball's into the back of the net, he's kind of turning his head as if to say, oh, I didn't know what happened there. But just a funny one there. But, we were going well in the first half. We just maybe did. Owen Connolly had that chance in the first half as well, where he bust forward. He was on camera on a lot of action early in that first half, and he surged forward. And I was talking to Brian Omara on Monday morning. I went to the team hotel at 7 o'clock and was doing interviews, but I was chatting away to some of the players kind of off air as well, and talking to Brian Omara. We were just talking about, and he was kind of saying with the way they were set up, that if you see something on, you kind of have that free reign to kind of go, because they have it set up that someone will cover for you. So Owen Connolly obviously spotted that was on, and I think it was Sam O'Farrell who could have played it into him. Sam's vision just so good. Tends to always do the right thing with the ball, and it opened up for Owen Connolly, took it, went for a goal, went for it just across the face of the goals and wide. So Tipp had that chance, the Jason Ford one in the back of the net, and they had 10 wides along with that as well. So while we were 6 points down, when you look back on it, we were actually motoring pretty well, and we were limiting Cork's danger. Cork didn't really have any big goal chance outside of the goal they got, but there was no, I go back, there was no sense of that danger, because Brian Omara was sweeping in front and getting onto the ball, and the Cork defenders had hit him the ball a couple of times as well, but there was no sense of Cork getting the ball out around the half back line, and you're already looking in thinking, oh Jesus, don't play a good ball in here, we're exposed. That wasn't happening. So while we were 6 points down at half time, we were going pretty well. And then the second half came. If you're here for answers on the second half, I think there'll be PhDs done, I think, on that second half. 3-14 to 2 points. It's bizarre. There's no explaining it. Like, if you put out any team, in a second half, they'd have a fair chance of getting 2 points. They'd get a free or something. It's just unbelievable. It doesn't make sense. But I'd say there's some psychological scars that were reopened for Cork in that second half. But again, they were dazed, confused. There was a concussive kind of feeling around the Cork team that they didn't really. I was talking to a fellow in work today, and I said, do you remember Real Madrid bet Liverpool in the Champions League final there 6 or 7 years ago at this stage? And Loris Karius, the goalkeeper for Liverpool, made those few mistakes, and he rolled the ball out to Benzema, and he let in a long-range shot from Gareth Bale that he parried into the back of the net, and everyone was kind of like, what's this lad at? And then people kind of look back on it, and wasn't it earlier in the game he kind of got a knock to the head, and you probably think, God, was he actually all there for those moments? And whether he was or he wasn't, we don't know. But that was kind of what it was like. It was like Cork were just, as a team, concussed. If you can get me, like, they weren't doing what Cork usually do. They weren't themselves at all. And why that is up for some psychological experts to kind of break it all down. But Tipperary, as I said, just hit them with hammer blow after hammer blow, and that just grew the wave. The tsunami was coming, and it just washed the Cork team away. So just unbelievable. We are 54 minutes into this, and we haven't got to the players' individual thing. So I know a lot of people really enjoy this part of the podcast, so we'll get to it now. This is going to be a long podcast. I'm buzzing. We've won the All Ireland. Let's get into it. So we'll start with Reece Shelley. As we've said already, scored a point from playing the All Ireland final. First goalkeeper, I believe, to do so. That's kind of a stat that's going out around there. I don't remember another goalkeeper scoring from play, but just his puck outs, his presence, saving the penalty. What a kind of find he's been all year. And I've huge time for Barry Hogan. Real sound fella, really good goalkeeper. Like, with Kildangan, he is huge for how they play in terms of picking balls out everywhere. Um, and he was unlucky in a way. I think Liam Cahill, in fairness to him, everything is on merit. I think with Liam Cahill, any player that wasn't on the matchday squad, um, for the most part this year, probably got their chance. They couldn't have too many complaints. They were played games themselves and things like that. And I'm pretty sure he gave everyone a chance this year. And if you didn't perform to the very highest level that he expects, you weren't picked. And Barry Hogan was unfortunate. He made a couple of good saves in that Limerick game, but then that one that Adam English scored it through kind of under his legs when he was rushing out. And then the Cork game came, but that Cork game was really difficult for Barry Hogan, playing with only 14, with only 13 outfield players to aim at that day, and we weren't set up right against Cork. So he was kind of not the fall guy, but he was one of the casualties of that game against Cork down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and Reese came in then for the Clare game and never looked back. Nailed on, has to be an all-star. And yeah, what a character, cult hero now. Just Reese Shelley. Robert Doyle, likewise, he got a really good point in the first half, again set up by Sam O'Farrell. He put the quietners on Alan Connolly. Alan Connolly scored a point, all game, and Robert Doyle, as he's done throughout the year, was just so good. Again, seems to be a bit. I've never spoken really to Robert Doyle properly, but seems like a bit of a character. Just kind of, I don't know, the smiley kind of head in him. Like, as I said, those Clounty lads, they seem to be great lads. He was so good throughout the year, throughout this game. He made two really good blocks on Shane Kingston towards the end of the game. Shane Kingston come on after about 63, 64 minutes. So it was at the end of that, the end of the game, it was after that point where Shane Kingston had kind of shot for 2 goals and Robert Doyle was just there to block him down on a couple of occasions. Owen Connolly, 15 points for the championship for him, one from play in the game on Sunday, and it was a monstrous one from distance over the bar it went. He's just a colossus, isn't he? He's a beast of a lad, and he is full of hurling. It's funny, I remember the very first time I saw Owen Connolly kind of play properly, was when it was for the under-20s for Tipp. I'm not sure what year it was. Now, he obviously would have played a big part in the 2018 and 2019 wins for Tipperary. But one kind of point where he really came into my radar was it was a game down in Waterford against Waterford, and he was centre back on the Tipperary under-20s team, and he just put in a really just kind of classy performance, so much so where I was like, God, who's that lad? Like, I wasn't working in Tipp FM at that point, so I wasn't as immersed in knowing every underage player coming through from going to minor games and things like that. So I remembered him from that day, and I was like, geez, that lad is class. And he had kind of a, not hard years, but it took him a couple of years to get to the level he is now. But he has nailed down that full back slot. And it was actually last year against Clare, the last game of the year, wasn't it? Michael Breen that day got kind of injured in the warm-up, and Owen Connolly had to come in and go kind of full back, and he done unreal that day. As was said, that was a game we mentioned was kind of a inconsequential one. Tipp were already out, but he done really well that day, and he's made that full back position his own. But Tipp, he's been moved around as well. He's well able to play out the field, as we've seen, and his long range frees earlier in the season as well, so good. Michael Breen was so good on Patrick Horgan the other day. He, particularly in that second half, as that tsunami was coming in, Cork would be looking to the likes of Patrick Horgan, Brian Hayes. Michael Breen was batting balls down. He was out in front of Patrick Horgan a couple of times, tearing down the field, winning frees. His long ball in resulted in the penalty for Tipperary. He's been unreal all year. And I think from the outside looking in, people are kind of nearly only saying now that, oh, Michael Breen was really good for Tipp. But I think every one of these I've done for every game, I've said, oh, Michael Breen, class performance. He's been doing it all year, and we kind of move on because it's just what we've come to expect from him. But he was unreal throughout that game. So good, and what a player for Tipperary. He's played in 3 All-Irelands, won 3 All-Irelands, 3 All-Ireland medals. He's played in midfield, wing forward. He was full forward there for a couple of games for Tipp a few years ago. Full back, now corner back. Wherever you want him, he's there, and he's a really good wing back as well. I was probably quoted nearly maybe at the start of the year saying I think wing back is Michael Breen's best position, but he's just the man for wherever you need him. And what a performance by him. Craig, so good all throughout the year. Such good hurling in Craig, you know. Again, he's a man who's just developed so much this year. Coming back from the knee injury, been thrown in corner back, didn't suit him at all. But Liam Cahill had huge faith. He made him his captain for the under-20s team in 2019, so you knew he had huge faith in Craig, and so much hurling in him, if you get me, and can do so many different jobs. Switched out with Brian Omara, was doing a bit of sweeping for a while, so intelligent, was just brilliant throughout the game. Ronan Maher, what else can we say? One of the best performances in an All-Ireland final that I can remember. Just on the main man for Cork, on the favourite for hurler of the year, the odds-on favourite for hurler of the year, Brian Hayes, and he was just a colossus. Like, he just, first half, remember that ball he caught right in front of Brian Hayes, took it off down the field, he caught a few more over him throughout the game. Those big moments after the penalty, snapping the puck out, driving the team forward. He is just a leader of leaders. He's on the wall in Thurles Sarsfields now. That's so cool. I think it's kind of temporary, the thing they have up now. They're going to kind of redo the whole thing. It needed kind of touching up, and now they're going to be putting Ronan Maher on it, which is just, it's so cool to, like, I remember that before the All Ireland, doing the press conference, the press night. You know, it was on maybe the Tuesday after the Kilkenny game, and I was thinking in my head, oh, Ronan has a chance now to kind of go on the wall. I'll ask him about it. And when I asked him about it, in my head I was thinking, he might just give me a generic kind of, oh yeah, look, that'd be nice, but I'm thinking about the game. I'm not thinking about any personal accolades or anything like that. I'm thinking about the game, and you can't be thinking about those things. But no, he was like, Paul, I'm walking into that clubhouse every day. You can't miss it. It's right there. I think about that. I've dreamt about that. I have to park it there. But yeah, to answer your question, I've thought about that a lot. And then he said on the up for the match, or not up for the match, the Sunday game at the banquet, that he had it as his screensaver on his phone for the last 2 years, a picture of the wall in Thurles Sarsfields clubhouse, on the outside of Thurles Sarsfields clubhouse, right beside Semple Stadium, where it has the previous 8 players from Thurles Sarsfields to captain Tipperary to All Irelands depicted there. And like, you know, all I could think of coming down from Dublin on Monday afternoon was the commentary on, this is random, but Usain Bolt won the gold medal in 2008, 2012 and 2016. But when he was lining up for the 2016 100-metre sprint final, I don't think anyone had won gold medals at 3 different Olympic Games in that event. And Bolt does what he does, surged forward, won the race, in 10 seconds. But the commentator just said, he's immortal now. And it's like, so good. Watch it back, 2016 Olympic 100-metre men's sprint final. He's immortal now. And that's all I was thinking with Ronan Maher. Like, he's immortal now. He'll be on that wall long before we're all gone. Long after we're all gone. And it's just so cool. Like, his granduncle is on that wall as well, John Maher, 1945 captain. It's just class, and absolutely delighted for Ronan. Anytime I've interviewed him, he's always had, gives really good with his time, real sound fella. And an interesting stat that Ken Hogan brought up on Monday evening's Extra Time, which if you haven't listened to and you want more content, Monday evening's Extra Time on Tipp FM YouTube, SoundCloud website, look it up. It's live from the homecoming, and we're in the President's Room, which is right behind the stage where the players were on stage at the homecoming. We have Sheamus Callan, James Woodlock, Ken, Tom McGrath, Noel Dundon, all the usual fellas we have on Extra Time. And then after the homecoming itself, we have all the audio of the speeches and all that on stage. But after that, then we're pulling in players, and a load of players are on the interviews, been interviewed by either myself or Ronan Quirk, as well as Liam Cahill. So really go and listen to that if you haven't already. But Ken Hogan made the point there that Ronan is the first active member of An Garda Síochána to lift the Lee McCarthy Cup. So I was kind of shocked by that. Just, with the amount of guards that there are playing GAA throughout history, I thought surely one of them would have been a captain for an All-Ireland winning team in hurling, but no, Ronan Maher is the first, so that's a nice bit of history there. Brian Omara, just what can be said, like he had to go off maybe 10 minutes into the second half, seems to be a hamstring kind of injury there, but he was so good. Just his sweeping up, as I said earlier, his hurling ability, and throughout the year, like the guy is. I was talking to Willie Maher, the head of hurling there earlier today, but he kind of mentioned how Brian Omara, like the pedigree is there. Like this shouldn't be a shock to anyone how good he has been and how good he's played. Like he's been Fitzgibbon Cup Player of the Year a few times, captained UL to 2 Fitzgibbon Cups. Do you know, it's all there. Like, do you know, and he's won under 20s, under 21s, and yeah, he's just been class. Really, I've been a huge fan of Brian Omara on this podcast, and from doing the interviews with him before and after the match, real sound fella as well. And that goes for like pretty much everyone on that Tipp team. They're such sound lads. They're so good with their time to us, coming onto the live radio after a long day and probably a long night on Sunday night, Monday morning chatting to us, Monday evening chatting to us. So good with taking pictures with youngsters like Darragh McCarthy. I'm nearly sure the PA system had to go off in Semple Stadium to be like, can you leave Darragh McCarthy? He has to go now. He's been signing autographs for about an hour out in the field after the homecoming. But they actually had to say to him, or say over the PA to like, Darragh actually has to go here. But they're so good with their time, and that's every one of the players. And you know, they're just good lads. They're just sound fellas, like, you know, and that's kind of added to the Tipperary public really getting behind the team because there's just such sound fellas. Willie Connors, I'm so happy for Willie Connors. You know, I've played against Willie. He's a year above me, parish beside me, so we played each other a lot, whether it even been soccer for our Rovers and Puck On, or whether it was hurling with Burgess and Killadangan. Always been a big fan of Willie Connors, and that was the best game I think he's ever played for Tipperary. He was on Declan Dalton, marked him out of it, hurled his own game, got that brilliant point, came out with ball after ball. He has that dog in him. Do you know, that's always been there for Willie Connors, and his journey to this point. Do you know, he's been in and out of the team. Do you know, people saying would he even start the final, and he was just unbelievable, and it was a real master stroke from Liam Cahill and the management team to put him on Declan Dalton. Two kind of similar characters. I'd say they nearly loved seeing each other coming. I'd say if you had those two mic'd up for the game, I'd say they were going at each other the whole time. But he kind of dominated that matchup. You know, Declan Dalton only got a point, didn't really have any great influence on the game, whereas Willie Connors got a point himself and was so influential throughout, and even ran down the tunnel after Declan Dalton. But I was at half time. But I was told that they were two of them were having a pint together inside in Dublin City on Sunday night, and laughing and joking about it. Conor Stakelum, like him in the semi-final was incredible. That 3 points he got when Tipp were really on the back foot, particularly early on against Kilkenny, he was so good. He got that first point of the second half. I mentioned you nearly have to kind of watch it back and keep it in mind the amount of times Conor Stakelum is in a ruck, shielding the ball off for another Tipperary player, getting an important flick away. It's he's been so good. And again, I don't want to be like these lads are sound lads. Conor Stakelum's such a sound fella. Talking to him on Monday, real good lad, and yeah, just really happy for him. Jake Morris, you know, 24 points for the year, 2 from play in the final. Just what can be said? Like, Jake has been unbelievable this year, and I'd said it before. I don't know if I've said it on podcasts or whatever, but I've always kind of had this belief that if Tipp were to win in All-Ireland, that Jake Morris would have to be like an All-Star. And I always believed that Jake had the ability to be an All-Star. And, you know, he's a shoo-in now. Like, he has to get an All-Star for his performances throughout the year, his leadership. You know, I think at the very start of the game, I think it was Coleman caught a puck out over his head, but Jake caught one back over his head a few minutes later, showing for the ball, his diagonal passes. I hope for a Nina Earl point of view, they don't put him in stick him corner forward in the club championship, because it's kind of so hard for him to, you know, he's wasted in there. If you have Jake out roaming around, getting onto ball, using his pace, he's still a goal threat because he can take his man on. He's been so good this year. And yeah, out in that half forward line, switching in and out, suited him down to the ground. Andrew Ormond, I mentioned, quiet in the first half, exploded into it in the second half, particularly early on in that second half, and just full of legs, full of running. The amount of runs that him and Jake Morris make for the puck outs for Reece Shelley is incredible. And Reece is able to put it into that space. But those lads, as Reece said, have to make the runs, and they do make the runs. And Andrew Ormond, 215 for him in the championship, 2 from play in the final. And he didn't really play the first 2 rounds. He came on against Cork in the second half of that game down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh when we were blown out of it with 14 men. And he made a pretty good impression that day. And then he was even corner forward kind of that day. And then they put him in centre forward. And 2-1 or whatever he got against Clare. And he's never looked back. And just again, another sound fella. He's really a top fella, Andrew Ormond. So he was so good in that game. Sam O'Farrell, I think we've kind of mentioned it. Sam O'Farrell has captained Tipp to a minor, an under-21 All-Ireland, and now he's won one at senior level as not the captain, but just as a player, not just as a player, but as a player. And he's 20. He has won it all already. So he's studying medicine up in Galway. Hopefully, he's just going to stay at it because. And there was no reason to believe that he won't, but he is just been so good. He's been so good throughout the year. He scored 1-4, but he was wing back for a lot of games, midfield, half forward. I've always said Sam O'Farrell's nearly best ability is his ability to get into positions where the ball just comes to him, find pockets of space, and then his ability to facilitate kind of other players and play the ball in, and his leadership as well for a young lad is really good. So fair play to Sam O'Farrell. As we said, assisted Jake for his 2 points, assisted Robert Doyle, assisted Andrew Ormond, and was ever present there, and assisted that goal chance for Owen Connolly as well. So Sam O'Farrell, just class. Then we get to the full forward line. Darragh McCarthy, 113 in an All-Ireland final. Ken Hogan gave him the Tipp FM man of the match, so I believe there's a €200 one for all voucher coming his way in due course. But Darragh McCarthy, what can be said? What a year he's had. The sending off against Cork, the second yellow against Kilkenny, all that pressure on his shoulders, taking the frees, and he's just setting up a goal, scoring a goal against Kilkenny in the semi-final before he was sent off. What a performance from play, from frees. Didn't put a foot wrong. I think he hit one wide, and it was like an over-the-shoulder effort out in the sideline that just marginally went wide in the second half. Just what can you say? He's still 19. He's not 20 until August. So it's been just incredible from Darragh McCarthy the other day. For the championship, he scored 246. So just unbelievable stuff from him. And that's not playing against Cork because he was sent off straight away, and not playing against Waterford because he was suspended. So that will tell you, Darragh McCarthy has just been, for a young lad, it's so exciting, and spoke really well in all the post-match interviews. And just, I don't know how he does it, because with all the supporters booing him and jeering him, if that was me and everyone was booing me hitting a free and I scored, if it was a Burgess Junior B game over in Kilcoleman, I'd be giving it back to whoever was booing. But he just keeps it calm, keeps it composed in an All-Ireland final, and 113 for him. And then we move on to John McGrath, 2-2 from him. We've talked through the goals, his experience, his nous, his cuteness, his composure, and it's so good to see John McGrath in this form again. I think he scored 3 points in the league. In the championship, he scored 7-16 from play. That is incredible. And fair play again to Liam Cahill and the management team for managing John's minutes and manage him through the season, because John had that Achilles injury, and it did take him, a lot of people would have thought, I think it could be the end of the road for John McGrath after last year, but he obviously needed that year or two to get back to full fitness. An injury like that is very hard on the body, of course, but also on the mind, to think, can I get to this level? Do I still have it in me? But John McGrath, like all the McGraths, like Nolan Bryan and all the McGraths from Lockmore, they just have it here. And if you're listening on, I'm pointing at my head. Just so clever, so smart. And he's an all-time legend now for Tipperary. If he wasn't already, John McGrath is an all-time legend for Tipperary. And I think I've been saying it to a few people, like, John McGrath kind of has to be hurler of the year, I think. I know Jake, if Jake or Ronan or whoever got it, I'm not too fussed. Like, it's going to be a Tipperary person, you think, at this stage. But John McGrath, 7-16 from play in the championship, 2 goals in the All-Ireland final, 1-2 in the semi-final. The goals against Limerick when we needed them. When Tipp kind of really needed scores and needed leadership up front, John McGrath was right there. And I think he'd probably be my hurler of the year, to be honest. But as much of a legend as Noah McGrath is, and Noah McGrath is my favourite hurler of all time now for sure, John is right up there. What a player to watch. Had the privilege of watching him throughout the campaign last year in both hurling and football with Lockmore Castleiney, and he has transferred that form to the intercounty scene once again. What a player. Put the statue up, him with the 2 arms in the air, unbelievable, John McGrath. Then Jason Ford, 2 points for him. The first one was class, that one in the middle of the field, got it under pressure. He's all wrists, isn't he, Jason? And then the second one was off his left from play in the second half as well into the Davin stand. Again, similar to John, people might have thought that Jason, as a starter, as a playing 75 minutes of an All-Ireland final, that those days were gone. Jason's still only 31 or that, I'd say. But he has been unreal this year. 346 for him throughout the year, and he was the man that got Tipp through that semi-final when Darragh McCarthy was sent off. He got that free underneath the stand, underneath the Hogan stand out on the sideline. He nailed those frees in the semi-final. He got the goal in the first half, and it's just been class to see Jason Ford produce that again, because by all accounts there was talk that he could have, it must have been in his mind about kind of retiring last year, because he said in some of the post-match interviews and press conferences that he had a chat with Liam Cahill and Lorna Park at the start of the year, at the end of last year, and he kind of said, I can't leave it on that. So, you're not saying you can't leave it on that unless you're thinking of leaving, So happy he stayed. He moves up to 3 All-Irelands as well, and I've heard the point being made, 3 All-Ireland medals sounds a lot better than 2, doesn't it? I don't know what it is, but 3-time All-Ireland winner Jason Ford. Class. And that is a word that you'd use to describe Jason Ford. So it's been brilliant to see him in the form he's been in all year. The subs that come on for Tipp, Alan Tynan, won a free laid on that Darragh McCarthy put over the bar. Has been brilliant all year. Sheamus Kennedy, how good was it to see him come on? And he didn't just come on to kind of see out the game and get minutes. He was the first sub on. He came on for Brian Omara, who went off injured. Sheamus always cool and composed. He did have that one time where he couldn't get the ball off the ground, but it's so good to see Sheamus Kennedy, like how far he's come as well, down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh against Limerick in the league last year, doing his knee with a real awkward kind of turn when the ball went over his head. And if you listen back to him talking on Tipp FM as well, he spoke about thinking, he was 31 or whatever. Is he going to have these days again with the knee injury? And in fairness to him, by all accounts, we spoke about it. So even speaking to Liam Cahill before Christmas in that interview, he spoke about how Sheamus Kennedy was already back training, and even before that, I'd heard so much stories about how dedicated he was to getting back. And again, he was another fella that was managed really well throughout the year, because I'd imagine it was taking him a bit of time as well to just get that confidence back. And he was managed, his minutes were managed really well in terms of when to play him fully, when to bring him on, because he offered so much in terms of composure in loads of games this year. Darragh Stakelum came on for his brother Connor, lovely moment for them. Darragh Stakelum was really, really good throughout the campaign. So busy, we've talked about him a load of times about how good his work rate is to go with the brilliant hurling he has. Noel McGrath, he is a legend of all legends for Tipperary. Everything he's kind of been through with his health, illness that he had 10 years ago, coming through that, everything he's done for Tipp. 4-time All-Ireland winner Noel McGrath, scoring a goal as a teenager in 2010 in the final, to just being the elder statesman, scoring the last point of the match in 2025 final 15 years later, with 2 other All-Ireland successes in between. It's an all-timer for Tipperary. If there's a Tipperary all-time 15, Noel McGrath's on it. and I won't hear any more about it. And I don't think that's even a debate at this point. So incredible. And if we look at the other end of the, and I don't know if it's the end of the road for Noel. He's always kind of said he's going to put himself forward to play with Tipperary as long as he's wanted, and that might be for 20 years at this stage, because no one is ever not going to want Noel McGrath on a panel. And yeah, he's played such an important role, I'd say, even off the field. That interview I done with Jake Morris at the launch of the All-Ireland series, and I asked him about Noel, and he kind of stopped and looked and said, Noel McGrath is imperative, I think was the word he used, to what we're doing in Tipperary, and how important he is for that group, and his leadership on and off the field, and the calmness he brought to games. Noel McGrath, like, I'm not wearing a hat, but if I was, it's off to you, Noel. And I had the pleasure of interviewing him in the Grand Hotel, and I made sure to end the interview by saying, Noel, you're a legend. You know, that's the only word you can use to describe Noel McGrath. Well, you could use a lot of them, but legend is certainly one of them. Oisín O'Donoghue come on as well. It was the first time I'd say Oisín come on where it wasn't Oisín, can you go out and score the goal and win the game for us, please? It was more so of a Oisín, go out and enjoy yourself in an All-Ireland final at that stage. Unlucky probably not to get a point, but he won the free that Darragh McCarthy put over late on, and you know, Oisín, he's under 20 again next year. I'm recording this on Wednesday. I think there's under 19 games happening around the county. He is eligible to be playing under 19 with Cashel Kincormacs, you know, this summer. Now I hope for his own sake that, you know, he's not really played in those games, and maybe they're holding him on. They have the West final this weekend against Clonalty on Saturday evening, so they're probably not playing under 19 this week on account of that. But you know, what a season he's had. You know, the goal against Kilkenny will go down as one of the best moments from a Tipperary point of view in recent memory. His goal against Waterford, he scored the one against Galway out in front of Daithí Burke where Noel McGrath played him in the ball. Just what a campaign he's had. Scored a goal against Kilkenny in the league as well. You know, it's unbelievable what he's done. Delighted his father Sean would be on with us on Tipp FM a good bit. Such a sound fella, and you know, messaging him after games, like, they are living the dream. Like, your son performing like that for Tipperary at the age of 19, and he only turned 19 in January. Just unbelievable stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. What are we in? An hour and 22 minutes of me talking to myself in a room about Tipperary, and I'm as buzzing now as I was at the start of the podcast. So it's been such a good buzz. To give maybe a kind of insight into my week, last week we had a preview night down in TUS in Thurles. Met a good few people down there, so thanks for everyone who came to that. And thanks to everyone, as I said earlier, who've come up to me, whether it was in the Palace Bar or Chaplin's on Saturday up in Dublin, or whether it was after the match on Sunday, or down in the team hotel on Monday. I was talking to Sean Fogarty from Lochmore, talking to him there, and another few people who come up to me, and it's really kind of nice. I just want to say thanks to everyone who come up, and at the homecoming as well, to say they listen to the podcast, or they love the podcast, or the loads of nice comments been left under some of the commentary videos. So yeah, look, I'm a Tipperary fan like everyone listening to this. I just kind of get a really good front row seat in my job in terms of commentating on the game. So a big thanks to everyone who kind of who come up and come up to me throughout the week. But anyway, my week, so last week, was so busy organising guests and things like that for our preview night, and a massive thanks to James O'Connor, Willie Maher, Ken Hogan and James Woodlock, who come on to our preview show last week down in TUS in Thurles. So that was Wednesday. So busy up to then, I didn't really get time to even do my research for the game until Thursday, doing all my research, getting the Friday evening sports show across the line ready. Then I had to drive down. I'm living here in Burgess, working in the Neen office in Tipp FM, driving down to Clonmel on Friday evening to pick up the Tipp FM car, driving back up. Saturday, we said we were going up to Dublin on Saturday, myself and the missus, so we went up on Saturday, stayed in her godmother's house in Chapel Izard. We stayed there. We went out for a few drinks on Saturday, but I couldn't stay out late because I needed to be minding the voice for Sunday. So we went out from about 4:30 till about, I think we called it about 9:30, because as the night gets longer, it gets louder, and that's no good for when you need a voice for commentating. So that was Saturday. Up Sunday, off to Croke Park, got in there early, chatting to a few people, met Darren Gleeson on the way in. So great to see Darren in such good form, given kind of the health scare he had earlier in the year, and he's working his way through that. So brilliant to see Darren Gleeson, and we wish him well. And talking to other lads on the way in, getting to Croke Park, and just the sense of, like, as from a personal point of view, this is like the pinnacle of, a dream, commentating on Tipperary in an All-Ireland senior hurling final. It doesn't get much bigger than that for me. And just getting to Croke Park, coming out of the press box, coming out of the room where the press area is to the press box, and just seeing the GAA 2025 Amont sign crest in the middle of the field, like kind of goosebump stuff. And I did kind of have to take a few deep breaths before starting the broadcasting, because it's big, like, and you want to do a good job on it, and you hope that you get the big moments right, and you say the right name when the ball is coming down, and you do a professional job as best you can. So there's always that. I don't know if it's nerves, because I think Sunday was my 173rd game commentating on Tipp FM. My first was the All-Ireland Minor semi-final in 2022 in Tipp at Galway. So yeah, getting through that, doing the commentary with Ken Hogan, incredible, and actually kind of emotional, very emotional before the game and after the game, just kind of sitting there. If you're a listener of this podcast, particularly the start of the year, you would have known myself, my health issues at the start of the year, and getting a defibrillator put in, and you just don't know when these days are going to come. And when the day came, and it was just incredible to be there, and a real special moment on a personal level, but for the county as well. And then, I thought Ronan's speech, mentioning Dylan Quirk, and it's like, not to bring it back to myself, but at this point of the podcast, we're nearly an hour and a half in. The fifth game I ever commentated on was the Dylan Quirk unfortunate game, Friday the 5th of August, Clouty against Killer One, where he passed away. And that is, if you were there that day, I didn't know Dylan, had never spoken to him, but that has stuck with me. My own kind of heart troubles had started at that time. That was a very kind of just weird experience. I don't know what the words you use to be there, and it's one that the images of that day will stay with me forever. So to hear Ronan mention him, and all the players talk about him, and how he was a part of the journey, you were getting emotional kind of hearing Ronan talk about it on the steps of the Hogan stands. So he was part of that journey with that team, and that's me speaking from what the team have said. So it's been incredible. It's just been incredible, and you can nearly feel that presence there in Croke Park on Sunday. So that was moving back to kind of how my day went. That was Sunday. The match finished. We were on air for ages. Get down, do the press conferences, wait around to do the some of the interviews after, but we ended up not being able to do them because the lads were in a rush, because they had to get back out to Malahide to get ready for the match. And the things I saw in that tunnel, so where the buses come in and collect the players, and a note on that: the Tipperary bus for the semi-final couldn't fit under the tunnel, so the bus had to stop just outside the tunnel, and the players had to walk in, and that's where all those Tipperary supporters were there. That just kind of happened by accident against Kilkenny, and it just happened that the Tipperary supporters had gathered there and really cheered the lads on. That happened again in the final, but this time the management knew that the bus can't fit down the tunnel, so we're going to have to stop there. And a huge crowd were there to greet the players, and that's not just like a Croke Park thing. Like, I spoke about it after the Clare game. Remember, there was footage of I think it's Conor Stakelam's lads in Retake that done some of the video work around the Munster Championship. They got a video of the Tipperary players walking in off the bus in Cusack Park, and that was when we had a point on the board after 2 games. It was a must-win game. There was a huge Tipp following there that cheered all the lads on, and there's a great clip of Liam Cahill running out of the bus with his gear bag, kind of running to catch up with the rest of the team. And there's like literally, it's like he's running a marathon, and everyone is kind of cheering him on. There's a huge roar for him. So that's just unbelievable to see. But going back to when I was in that tunnel after waiting for the Tipperary players to come out, the Cork players walked out of. They had their post-match meal in one of the restaurant, or one of the kind of rooms in the underbelly of Croke Park, and I'll never forget the kind of looks on their faces walking out. Sheamus Harnedy in particular, Kieran Joyce was another one, just kind of walking out, such a dejected look on those lads' face. No one really saying anything to each other, and it was a real kind of somber feeling standing there as a Tipperary journalist. You're ecstatic. You've talking with some of the other Tipp journalists, Noel Dundon and Shane Brophy, Stephen Gleeson. We got a great picture with Liam Cahill that you might have seen, where Liam is like this to Shane Brophy. It's all in good. Like, Liam is a top fella, and that was, we were having the crack there. But then seeing the Cork players come out, you see the kind of the ecstasy and the agony of sport. So as I said earlier, I didn't envy the position those Cork players were in coming into the game, and I've always said how Patrick Horgan has been one of my favourite hurlers. I would have loved to have seen him win an All-Ireland, just not against Tipperary. And I still would really like to see Patrick Horgan win an All-Ireland. Whether he calls it now or not, I don't know. But what a player he's been. He's just such a baller. He's a street hurler, kind of a fella that grew up with a hurley in his hand, and in his 37 years on the planet hasn't left it down. So I do feel for the likes of him. That's his fifth All-Ireland final he's played in, including the replay in 2013, and hasn't been able to get over the line. And in his first All-Ireland final, he would have thought that he got the winning score. Like, he got that point to go put Cork a point up against Clare in 2013, and you can't get much closer to perfection than that. And then the cornerback Darragh O'Donovan got the point for Clare to send that game to a replay. And Patrick Horgan has played in 4 more All-Ireland finals and hasn't been able to win it. So I do feel for him, and I do feel for those Cork players, particularly that somber attitude. And they called off the homecoming. I still think that was the wrong decision. You can see why, the kind of state they were in, that they called it off. But I still think they're Munster champions, league champions. Just probably go out and just say thanks for the support, for all the brilliant support that the Cork public have given us all year. We're really disappointed, but we'll try our best that when we come back next year, that we'll have the Liam McCarthy Cup with us for the homecoming, and just say thanks to supporters, half an hour in and out, and that it kind of puts a bow on the season, or puts a bit of closure to the thing. But I just thought they should have done that maybe for the homecoming. But anyway, so that was Sunday. Got back to the apartment we were staying in. I'm absolutely knackered at this stage, because you're coming down off the high and you're waiting in traffic and things like that, and the adrenaline of commentating on a game like that is fading away, and you're hungry and things like that. And then we sat down to watch the Sunday game, ordered a bit of grub from Supermax, and my chicken tenders didn't come. So disastrous stuff on a Sunday evening after being just so hungry. So I actually had to do another order, and some fella on a bike had to come back out to the apartment and bring me chicken tenders because I was starving. But anyway, that was Sunday night. Had loads of things to kind of edit and audio to put up and things like that. So I was busy that way. I didn't really get to sleep till kind of 1:30 on Sunday night, and then had to get up. I think my alarm was set for 6:20 on Monday morning, because I had to go out to Malahide to the team hotel and get interviews there. That was a class experience. The buzz around the place, how open the lads were, kind of nice casual sense to the interviews, because early in the morning they weren't rushing anywhere. But just getting to talk to all the players after that, and meeting people there was class. So after that, then that was about 12 o'clock Monday. Had to drive back then to Thurles, because I had all the gear to set up for the homecoming in terms of our broadcast of the homecoming. So getting down to Thurles kind of 4:30 time, eventually getting in, getting set up, and we were live on air from 6 to about 10:15 on Monday. So that was full on. Then Tuesday was back into the office to upload all the commentary, upload extra time, put clips together, put them out on social media, get all the audio from the commentary as well, and edit that video that you saw with myself and Ken Hogan, our reactions. That was my Tuesday. And then I was actually on the early shift and work on Wednesday, so that's reading the bulletins in the morning. So the first bulletin is at 7 o'clock, so you have to be in and get that ready. And then finish at around 2:30, came back, as I said, slept, watched the match back, and here I am recording this interview. So it's been a hectic kind of 2 weeks for me, but it has been the most enjoyable 2 weeks. That's, as I said, it's the pinnacle of what I can do in my job with Tipp FM, is commentating on Tipp in a senior hurling All-Ireland final. The build up to it was amazing. The match itself, the post-match stuff, it's just been incredible. So if you're still watching on at this stage, I haven't given out much reminders to like the video. Usually that's always a good way of getting likes. Like the video if you're watching at this stage, and if you haven't subscribed already an hour and a half into the podcast, then I don't know what I could do to get you to subscribe. But I'll try and get out. There's some more interviews that are on Tipp FM that I haven't got to upload on YouTube just yet, and that I'll get around to in the next day or two. So yeah, you'll have plenty to sink your teeth in. So that's the conclusion of the podcast for the inter-county season, but you won't have long to wait. The podcast will be back up and running after the first round of the County Hurling Championship. I might give it a rest for this weekend and the next weekend, but after the County Hurling Championship, we'll be back with the podcasts, looking back on the club games. So it's been unbelievable. Such good support for the podcast throughout the year. So again, a final thanks to all the listeners and viewers and subscribers for tuning in. It's been class. It's been really, really good. And yeah, long may it continue. Up Tipp, we're all Ireland champions. And yeah, it's just the buzz of all buzzes. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll chat to you on the next one. Good luck and God bless.